Yeah, if you could just give us the name and the name of your company that you're representing, please, before you ask the question.
I'll just shout. Carol McCann from Mercer Foods, and my question is for Nick. Just in showing up big, so like we have market leaders in our portfolio as well. But how you show up big but don't be arrogant towards us consumers so that you actually alienate and turn people off by being the big brand out there?
Do we stand up, sit down? How does it work? I can see. Yeah, I guess it's like going to a party with a pink tracksuit on, yeah, which is everyone will notice you, but no one will want to talk to you. Or probably, yes. So I think there's a way in which you can turn up that doesn't alienate everybody. But consumers are busy and they're preoccupied, and most of the time they've got more important things to think about than your brand. And unless you are forceful and assertive without being arrogant, I think there's just a danger that they miss you and they don't see anything. So I think you have to show up in a big way, and that goes to the salespeople going to sell your portfolio as well, or your brands, in the way that they confidently walk in. Because if they show up small with the customers, I think you'll get a small outcome. So there's a fine balance, as always, between confidence and arrogance. You just have to try and stay on the right side of it.
And for retailers, because if you show up big here, sometimes retailers are like, oh, you're big, so we need more money. So from a retailer perspective, how do you go up big without trying to beat them?
Wow, that's a tough question. I think if you're big enough and your brand is strong enough, then that's what protects you in those conversations. So, because at the heart of that, despite the fact that you go with investment, if you go with investment to customers about the money you're going to put in your brand, then there is more likely that they're not going to want to miss out and be part of the shared benefit of that investment. Clearly, at the time, you have to, all our jobs are to protect the margins on our businesses and products and brands as best we can day to day. So you have to keep doing that. But invariably, when you show up big and deliver investment and growth into categories, then retailers generally want to be part of that.
Could I just before another question, because I should have thanked Nick formally for all of the content in his speech, and that question reminds me of what I think was the central point he was making. It wasn't that you go in and say, I'm big. You go in with a big ambition, is what I took out of that. If you have a small, limited ambition, you're going to end up small. If you have a big ambition, regardless of what size you are, you're going to be big and you're going to be successful. I think that, and the other point that Nick was making, which I think kind of goes along with that, is be the brand you want to be. At the core of what he was saying to me was self-confidence. To be more confident about what you're doing, and you will be more successful. And that's what I took out of that, going big and you come out big. It's not a question of the size of the company, it's a question of the size of your ambition. So thanks for that, Nick, because I think it's very important.
No, I think one of the most ambitious company that I worked for was AB InBev. And part of the 3 pillars of their business is dream people culture. Yeah, and the dream is, they want people to dream big every single day because they have big ambitions, and they'd rather shoot for the stars and land in the moon than land somewhere far below that. And I think it was just one of the things that struck me in my time there that I picked up that allows you to think in a different way about brands sometimes.
The first presentation we heard tonight was a very big, ambitious company as well. Tom, now, question.
Aisling Flanagan, Velvet Cloud. For both of you, what advice would you give to smaller brands who have a big ambition but wouldn't have the big budgets? What advice would you give to work with retailers? And just a quick one as well for Tom. You mentioned you felt that there was a point beyond which the return on investment on Facebook plateaued. If you'd be able to expand on that.
I was hoping somebody else would be able to kind of give me some insight on that as well, actually. Yeah, no, just we decided to put quite a bit of money behind Facebook because just in terms of looking at it, the awareness we got and the number of people we reach for the money we put in seems to be really good. And then if we put some approximations, you know, if somebody becomes aware of MOMA, there's X% chance of them then going on to become a regular consumer. It seems the figures seem to stack up, but you're always going to get, I think, diminishing returns the more money you put into something, but it's kind of at what level that happens. And it seemed that, you know, I had big plans to spend a lot on Facebook, and it was all going well, but then it kind of stalled a bit recently because we were getting a lot higher cost per acquisition once we were hitting people 2 or 3 times. So we've not really kind of bottomed it out at the moment, but it was basically me saying I thought that was going to be a really good route, but then we kind of got stuck in the mud a little bit on it because we were actually maybe it's not going to kind of continue to give that low cost per acquisition that we thought it was going to. But we're still kind of working through that at the moment, and it may be something that kind of somebody else has a bit of insight on as well. In terms of your first question, in terms of kind of working with the retailers if you've got small budgets, I think it's an impossible. There's not a right or wrong answer on it. I think it's kind of you work within the budgets that you've got. If you've kind of got some big investment behind you, you might be able to spend more, but you always have to kind of take that rational viewpoint of, if you spend this money, are you going to get the return on it? Are you really confident in your products? Have you got the distribution that, you know, now is the right time to go and spend loads of cash because you're confident it's going to return? If you haven't quite got the distribution, your product's not quite right, you know, hold back a little bit. Or if your product is right but you've just not got the funds, then just be really objective about which channel is going to make the best return for you. Is it sampling? Is it kind of working the retailers to do coupon at till, to do shelf edge labels, that sort of stuff? You know, at what stage is it right to go and do kind of the big TV campaign? Maybe it's never right. It depends on, I think, distribution and kind of the sort of customers that you're trying to target and the sort of brand that you're trying to be. So that doesn't really answer your question, but other than say it's kind of, yeah, it is tricky, but just kind of analyze all the routes, see which is the best within your budgets.
Yeah, just one build on that, I think it's true, is it's not necessarily harder. If you're a smaller brand, you just have to have real differentiation in some way or form. And that's maybe, for Tom, was maybe the founder story, because that's often a part of it in terms of the people that are behind the brands can be a really compelling part of the story that the retailers buy into. Because often people buy into people and, you know, the endeavour, as well as having a fabulous product, which you have to survive. But I think if there's a real differentiation in the founder's story or something unique that you're attached to as a cause, then you can get engagement from retailers in a different way from a more traditional way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, kind of buyers definitely buy into passion and people that are really excited about products. You know, it can be infectious. So you definitely have to kind of really overtrade on that if you're a startup business, because it, you know, definitely help you get in and you get stuff that otherwise as a big business you'd have to pay for. So yeah, you definitely got to try and milk that as much as you can, really push it as hard as you can. Yeah.
More. John. Yeah.
Thank you, John Noonan from Flavins. Just a question for Tom. First of all, congratulations on the growth of MOMA over the last number of years. And my question is, just as you were explaining the growth, one of the things I think that you mentioned was your transition from chilled to ambient in terms of your portfolio. And was there any particular learnings that stood out for you in terms of that transition as you moved part of the portfolio across to ambient?
Yeah, yeah, you did warn me about this question as well. So the chilled's really tricky. You've just got to sell. You've got to have a consistently good rate of sale, and if you don't, then you're going to incur wastage. And the expectations from the retailers is a higher rate of sale. Because it's more expensive, the chiller space is more expensive space. So you've got to have a good product that's got that good rate of sale. And if you don't, you're more likely to get kicked out quicker, whereas kind of you're a little bit safer territory in the ambient side of things. For me, we were working with kind of a really good partner into the chilled side of things. So that kind of took care of the logistics side. So we were really lucky from that point of view. But moving into ambient, for us, has been, it's a lot easier product to deal with. If I compare porridge to birch muesli, they're kind of different in lots of ways. Birch muesli, super innovative. We're a bigger player on the market, but it's a far smaller market. Chilled versus porridge, kind of ambient product, massive market. We're a smaller player on that market. So I love the ambient market. I think it's a lot easier than chilled, but it's about kind of understanding that market. And there are people who are in ambient who then try and go into chilled. Several companies I know, and it's really tricky unless you're kind of partnering with somebody that knows that side of the market and understands the supply chains and kind of the different needs of that market. So I think you can definitely do both, but make sure you're working with people that kind of really understand the dynamics, particularly if you're going into the chilled market.
Michael Murphy from Pro Yogurt. Two excellent presentations, but my question is for Tom. In terms of managing multiple contract manufacturers, what do you think the secret to managing that really well is?
So we've probably worked with 7 different contract packers over the years. We've got 3 at the moment. So kind of everyone's here kind of talking about marketing and like sales, marketing, product development. It's the sexy end of the business. It's really exciting. But I think kind of any business is, the backbone of any business is the boring stuff, is the operations, is making sure those systems work really well. And it's working well with them is just about kind of being really organized and on top of those systems. With our porridge manufacturing, we manage all the stocks. It's kind of being really on top of all that stock, making sure we're not running out, we're not cutting it fine. As anybody who's involved in operations knows, it's when stuff goes wrong, not only does it cost you a ton of money, but just the stress levels kind of go out the roof, and it takes 6 times longer than it would have done if you did it right. So it's about having the systems in place, and it's about having people for whom they enjoy that sort of work. There's people in MOMA who are kind of really good at sales, people that are really good at marketing, and then the type of personality that is really good at operations is somebody that they really like the numbers to line up. They like to order things really neatly, and they get a kick out of kind of making sure stuff all stacks up. So getting the right people that can build those systems and manage those systems and keep on top of it. I also think kind of the relationship side is important, particularly as a small business, when you might be working with a manufacturer and you're a bit small for them, really. So you've got to kind of play up the small business side of things again and kind of really work on that relationship and make sure they really want to work with you. And that will kind of buy you a little bit more time in terms of getting your volumes from being a little bit too small for them to them kind of wanting to work with you because they like you as a person and trying to grow your brand. So I think good systems, the right team to kind of run those systems, and then work on the relationship with the contract packers.
Thanks. Any more? Yeah, just on the. Oh, sorry.
Hi, Owen Ryan, ABP. Just curious, both of you in business, both of you are supplying both Asda and Sainsbury's. What do you make of yesterday's big news?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. It's I'm not sure if we kind of. It's always interesting when people merge, kind of, if you're going to have a conflict in pricing, kind of you're charging one person a bit less than the other or something like that. So that remains to be seen. I don't know. It's going to be obviously a massive company, and it'll be interesting to see how it works out. I'm not totally sure of kind of the rationale behind it. Obviously, kind of very kind of different positions on the market in terms of kind of everyday premium, probably with Sainsbury's in terms of their positioning, probably in terms of their perception, slightly below Waitrose, slightly above Tesco, arguably, whereas Asda would kind of be more everyday value. So it'll be interesting to see how it works out. But yeah,
I think it's just building on that. It's not a big surprise. Not that I predicted it. Otherwise, I'd have bought shares, I guess, 3 days ago. But most, most big industries are consolidating in some way or form. And retail is, like many industries, is under pressure from disruptive influences, whether that's Aldi and Lidl, whether it's e-commerce, whether it's Deliveroo, Uber Eats. You know, the world of food is constantly disrupted, and in that space of the squeeze middle, which is it's a huge space, often comes consolidation at those times. So, did I see it coming? No. Is it the end of the consolidation? Probably not. I think there's probably more to come. And I think the predictors have been thinking that there will be some form of change in that space in the top 4 or 5 grocers for a number of years, and this is maybe the one they didn't see coming, but it's not that big a surprise given industry dynamics.
There's a funny clip of Mike Coop kind of humming "We're in the Money." So yeah, I've not seen it, but unfortunate choice of song for him. But
I'll take one more. I think there's one here. Yeah.
Hello, Maxine Hyde from Ballymaloo Foods. Thank you both for great presentations. Just today we were a group in the office and we are looking at our marketing spend for our coming financial year, and we're trying to figure out how there's so many places to break it down. I'm just wondering, do you have of your total marketing spend, have you guideline percentages of where you put digital to in-store to PR to traditional advertising?
That's the impossible question, isn't it? I guess it all starts from what your objective is and what where your brand is. So the way we tend to think, there's a traditional SWOT of where you're strong and weak and what are the opportunities and threats, but what is the consumer challenge or shopper challenge that you are trying to change in people's minds in the next 12 months or however your planning cycle works. And once you're super clear on that objective and the core consumer question that you are trying to solve, then I think that helps free you about the job you've got to do with your money. Because I know some brands that are 80% TV and still very happy, and I know some brands that are 100% digital and both think they're right. But I guess it starts from what they're trying to achieve, who you're targeting, the attitudes and values of those consumers, and what's the best way of changing what they think and feel about your brand. And if you can get clear on that, my general principle is, to your choice, we have too much choice as marketers, and if you can do one or two things brilliantly, then I think you're probably more likely to be successful.
So we're kind of in the growth phase of the business. So as a percentage of our turnover, we'd spend, I think, a lot more on marketing than you would expect as we kind of reach a higher level of sales and kind of start to mature a little bit. But we try and analyse kind of, like I was saying, what really works, and price promotions in supermarkets. We still think that's the best way to kind of drive volume and drive trial. We're not a promotion brand as such or at all. I'd like to think we're kind of we are at the kind of the premium end in terms of the porridge side of things. But it's really a useful, and we think kind of one of the most cost-effective ways to do it. So yeah, about 15% of our turnover goes on price promotions. That's quite a lot. And then trade marketing is kind of, trade marketing and general marketing are both kind of about the same as each other. So kind of in terms of as a percentage of our marketing budget on kind of things like digital, that sort of stuff, it's a lot lower. So we kind of digital maybe 10% of our marketing budget, something like that, because kind of a huge chunk would go on price promotions and also what we class as trade marketing with the retailers, whether that's kind of advertising on the Ocado website or specific in-store sampling with a certain retailer, or fees that you have to spend to kind of get on the gondola end, that sort of thing. So yeah, kind of price promotions, number one. Number two and joint second would be kind of trade marketing, and then general marketing. But within general marketing is where kind of what most people would look at as traditional marketing. So that's kind of where our ATL and our digital and our PR and our sampling and our events all fits within that. So kind of, yeah, all the discussion around marketing is actually, just one section and one of the smaller sections within our marketing budget.
Okay. I I'm dying to ask Tom a question. I'm always fascinated by where names of companies come from, names of brands, which is really peculiar kind of fascination. I mean, not many people know that Tesco, T-E-S, is tea, eggs, sugar, and CO is Jack Cohen's, the first two letters, Jack Cohen, who founded the company's name. Now, the question I have for Tom is, which came first? Making oats more awesome or MOMA?
Oh, well, that would be telling. Okay, but as
I
we're all,
figure MOMA came first.
it's in the spirit of sharing, as we're all here. So MOMA, yeah, I wanted something that was kind of unique, original, a bit catchy, and so MOMA is the name of a god of harvest and fruit, thought to be a giver of life, a Peruvian god. So it's quite. So that was the original name. And yeah, in the spirit of sharing, making oats more awesome came along a bit later, but it kind of.
On your behalf, I'd like to thank both speakers. They were great presentations, and usually when speakers come over here, they're quite delighted with the experience, and they're grateful, and they like the reception and all the rest of it. But it's very hard to get them in the first place. I understand that both speakers were extremely accommodating and cooperative when approached by Board Bia, and I'd like to thank them sincerely, not just for the papers and the quality of the papers, but for how easy it was to deal with them, which is a very pleasant experience in this day and age. Thank you.
Well done.